Welcome to I Teach, stories for teachers by teachers. This episode is called, Can I Borrow Some Money? And it may just leave you with a few unanswered questions. To protect the anonymity of the teacher who wants to share her story, she's asked me to tell it for her. I know that's going to happen quite a bit with this podcast. Teachers are afraid to share their story. They want to share their story, but they're concerned their voices are fairly recognizable. So I'm going to do my best to tell Patty's story, and here it goes. Patty is a seasoned teacher, as we call them. We don't call them old. We call them seasoned or veteran teachers. And she's been teaching for over 25 years in a school, a middle school in the South. She was such a strong teacher, or is a strong teacher in her grade level, that she wound up being kind of the lead teacher in that grade level, 7th grade. And every year she planned the field trips, the end of the year field trip for the 7th grade students. This one year, she was planning the field trip, and the field trip was scheduled for May. And where they were going, the facility wanted the money up front in early March. So she used her credit card. She figured, well, Patty was just going to say, I'm going to use my credit card. I get points. I get airline miles for it. So I'm going to use my credit card. I know I'm going to be reimbursed by the students. So this is a no-brainer. So she used her credit card. 2 weeks later, the principal, I'll call him Joe Fisher, the principal called Patty into his office and said, please close the door. Any teacher, any student who's called into the principal's office always has a little bit of quiver, a little concern. What did I do wrong? What's going to happen to me? It's a natural reaction. So she goes into the room. Patty goes into the room, closes the door, and sits down. And Joe says, listen, Patty, I know that you used your credit card to pay for the field trip. I was wondering if I could use your credit card and borrow $4,000 from you. My daughter is going to college, and due to family situations, I don't have the money right now to pay for that college course or courses. So would you mind sharing your credit card with me, and I will pay you back weekly until your credit card is paid off or my debt is paid off to you? Patty kind of looked at him, but knew him as a principal and trusted him, and said, okay, all right, I guess that's all right with me, and gave Joe Fisher the credit card information. A week went by, and Joe did not pay Patty back by any means, not $1, not $10, didn't pay Patty back. Patty let it go, figuring, okay, well, payday is the following weekend. He'll help me out then. He'll pay me back then. That Friday came and went, and there was still no money and no mention of paying Patty back that $4,000. Patty thought, all right, I'll give it another week. Another week went by. Again, no money. By the 4th week, Patty decided to talk to Joe and ask for the money. Said, Joe, I'm really needing that money. Is there a way you can start paying me back? And Joe said, oh, I am so sorry. My sister needed the money and she's going through a hard time. I promise I'll get you the money by the end of next week. Patty said, fine. The following Friday, there was no money. This went on from the beginning of March to the end of April. There was no money. There was no mention. Even though Patty kept asking Joe for the money, he was texting her saying, I will get it to you. He was emailing her saying, I will get it to you. And it never happened. So what does Patty do? She's in a dilemma. She is subordinate to the principal. He wasn't threatening her by any means. He wasn't saying, I'm not going to pay you back. And she didn't know what to do. So she went back to Joe and sat down and said, really, Joe, I need this money. I'm not sure what's happening, but it's been 2 months. My husband and I want to put windows in, which wasn't true. She was just trying to get her money back. Please get me my money. And he said, you know what? I really appreciate what you did for me. Brian, the other teacher, another teacher in the building, Brian was also so good to me. And, between you and Brian, I really appreciate your friendship. Patty wasn't friends with Joe Fisher at all. He was the principal. She was a teacher in the building. They knew each other on a professional level, but it never went further than that until he said, I really appreciate you and Brian for being my friend. So Patty went to Brian and said, Brian, can I talk to you? And Brian said, sure, come on in. And Patty told Brian the story. He's borrowed the money. It's $4,000. He hasn't given it back to me. He mentioned your name. I don't know what to do. But if this keeps up, I'm going to attempt to transfer out of the building, Patty said. I'm going to transfer out of the building. I can't work here anymore. I can't be a part of this. So Brian said, please don't go. Please don't go. You're such a strong teacher. Please don't let this get to you. And Patty said, well, I don't understand it either, but I'm going to have to transfer out of the building if this keeps up. Patty went in to Joe the next day and said, Joe, unless I get my money, I'm going to transfer out of the building. He got very upset. He was begging her to not leave the building. And his comment was, don't leave the building because I'm going to get in trouble. Joe said to Patty, I'm going to get in trouble. I will bring you the money this afternoon. I know where you live. I'll come to your house. I'll drop the money off. 6 o'clock. Patty said, fine. 6 o'clock came and went, and there was no Joe, and there was no money. Of course, Patty was upset by this. Joe said he would be at the house. He wasn't at the house. The next day, Patty goes and finds Joe, and Joe said, oh, is there something wrong? Are you upset with me? And Patty had lost it, so she pulled him into the nearest room that didn't have anybody in it. She said, sit down, Joe. I don't know what your problem is. I don't know if you have a gambling debt. I don't know if you have a drug habit. I don't know what is going on, but I want my money and I want it back tonight. That night happened to be the high school graduation. Joe said, I know, I am so sorry. I'll get you the money tonight before graduation. Please be home at 5 o'clock. I will drop the money off. And Patty said, fine. 5 o'clock came and went. No Joe. Now, what does Patty do? Patty decides to get in touch with the director of human resources and contacted the director and said, I need to speak with you. Can I have an appointment first thing in the morning? Now, Patty had an excellent reputation in the county, in the district where she was working. So when the director of human resources got this email from Patty wanting to meet, of course he said, sure, come to my office 7 o'clock in the morning. The next morning, 6:45 a.m., Patty is on her way to the district office to meet with that director of human resources. In her hand, she had every email printed out, every text printed out that proved the correspondence between herself and Joe regarding this borrowed money that was never paid back. While she was driving to the district office, her phone rang, and it was one of her 7th grade colleagues. And that 7th grade colleague said, Patty, why is Joe Fisher standing outside of your classroom door? He's waiting for you. Is there a problem? Now, Patty had one of two choices. She could have turned around and went back to the school, found out what Joe had to say, or she could continue on and go down to district office. She decided to continue on to go down to district office. She meets with the director. He says, what's the matter, Patty? I can see there's something wrong. And she began to tell her story. The shorter version, but the story of what I am sharing with you now. The director took one look at her and said, do you have a personal relationship with Joe? Insinuating that she and Joe were either having an affair or had something going on outside of school. To which Patty said, absolutely not. The director of human resources then said, well, if I asked you for $4,000, Patty, would you give it to me? And Patty said, it was a different situation. You can't compare the two. He asked for the money. I felt it right. I thought he would pay me back. He didn't pay me back. It's 2.5 months later. I want my money. And I need to transfer out of the building. The director told Patty she would have the money by the end of the day and to go back to school. She went back to school. It was the last day of classes it was the last day of school period for school. The students weren't there, just the teachers. And of course, there's always that faculty meeting at the end of the school year. And Joe stood up to speak and began to cry. And as he was talking to the staff through tears, he was saying how disappointed he was in himself for not doing the best that he could as an administrator during the last few months. And the staff felt terrible for Joe. They thought he was going through some kind of health scare. They were themselves shocked and saddened and worried for him. Meanwhile, Patty's head was hanging down because she knew damn well he was referring to the money situation and to her. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Patty got a text from Joe saying, I will be at your house at 4 o'clock this afternoon with all of the money. Now, Patty had heard that how many times in the past, but decided that, well, let's hope this is true. He did come to her house with his college daughter, the daughter who he apparently borrowed the money for her college tuition. Patty was a little shocked to find the daughter standing there. So Patty's husband took the daughter aside and kind of, was playing with the dogs or walking around the house or whatever, while Joe said, we have to sign these papers proving that I've paid you back. And yes, all the money was there, $4,000 in cash. He turned to Patty and said, I'm so sorry it had to come to this. And Patty said, so am I. So am I. And that was the end of that. In the summer, there was a Board of Education meeting. And after the Board of Education meeting, Patty was called over by the superintendent and the director of human resources. They said, can we talk to you, Patty? And she said yes. And the superintendent, who also knew Patty very well, said, do you still want to transfer out of the building? And Patty said, absolutely. So within 3 weeks, she packed up her classroom in the building that she had known for many years and moved to another middle school in the district. She was not able to say goodbye to her colleagues. Nobody knew the situation. Nobody knew what was going on. But let me give you a little side note. She did see Brian somewhere between the graduation and this Board of Ed meeting. And Brian said, there's something I need to tell you, Patty. And she said, what? And Brian said, Joe came to me and asked for $7,500. Took it out of my school fund that I have for my students and never paid it back. Brian said he was not comfortable letting other people know what happened because he didn't want Joe to get in trouble. So do me a favor. Don't let anybody use your credit card. Don't allow colleagues to borrow money from you because you never know how it's going to turn out. This episode was narrated by myself, Joan Soldano, and produced by Michael Durso. The names have been changed to protect the anonymity of all involved in this story. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or visit our website, www.iteachpodcast.com. See you next time.